To the NBA we go. Woj is reporting that the Clippers are giving PG13 the max extension to stay in LA in an attempt to unseat the Lakers for the NBA title. The 4-year extension means that 30-year-old Paul George will be a Clipper through the prime of his career. Kawhi's 29, locked up only through this season, becoming a free agent in 2021. Kendrick Perkins back here with us. Stephen A., starting with you. If PG13 and Kawhi are at their best, can they beat the Lakers this season?
I think if they're at their best, first of all, I don't think anybody's going to beat the Lakers. But if they're at their best, I think they've got a shot. Is it this Kawhi Leonard? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Kendrick Perkins. Is it Kawhi Leonard the best player on the planet? Oops, I'm sorry. Or was it whoops, Kendrick Perkins? I'm not sure what Max was saying. I'm not sure, Kendrick. But if Kawhi Leonard without the oops or the whoops, if Kawhi Leonard without the whoops or the oops is the best player in the world, and Paul George is hell-bent on resurrecting himself, this ain't the 70s or the 80s or even the 90s where you could throw it down low to Shaq and, drop step elbows yamming on your mug. It's a new day. It's a new era. Perimeter play on an extremely high level can knock off a lot of people, and no matter how great they are. I'm saying that's what it would take. I don't think it will happen by any stretch of the imagination. I got the Lakers as a favorite by damn near a mile. But if the best of PG and the best of Kawhi showed up, it could be very, very interesting.
I hate to do it, Stephen A., but I agree with you here. Loath as I am to agree with you. I think they could. Here's the problem. I don't believe in Paul George in the playoffs. So, the answer is no. But if Paul George played as well as he could play in the playoffs, if he elevated somehow, because some players actually elevate in the playoffs, like usually Kawhi Leonard. In fact, he did it again in these playoffs, except for in that Game 7. And I know, Perk, you thought I was wrong and you were right about LeBron no longer being the best, but you had Kawhi as second best. I mean, Kawhi is an elite MVP caliber player, and when it matters most, he's usually among the best you'll ever see in the playoffs. So you have that. Can Paul George do something like that? Like, Paul George in the regular season ain't that much worse than Kawhi. Can he be some version of Kawhi in the playoffs? Because then when you look at the team, look, LeBron's not going to be young forever, right? Eventually, you would think, all people decline with age eventually. Stephen A. just brought it up, the perimeter game. Two attacking wings, two-way wings especially, that's tough to beat. Jordan and Pippen and LeBron and D. Wade, right? That's tough to beat. And then you look at what else the Clippers did. Ibaka can defend and shoot, so can Morris, defend and shoot. Kennard is an upgrade over Shamet. He could do more things, and he can also shoot. They have shooting. And then finally, the Lakers lost Rondo. I like the Schroeder move a lot. I think Schroeder's an upgrade during the regular season. It remains to be seen in the playoffs, because one thing we know about Rondo is playoff Rondo is real. When it came down to it, the Lakers had 2 MVP caliber players and an all-star caliber player in Rondo. Rondo's not there anymore. So would it be possible? Yes, it would be possible.
Hell no. Hell no. Look, Kawhi at his best and PG at his best is not matching up with LeBron James and Anthony Davis at their best. And Stephen, I heard you go to the point when you was talking about how it's a perimeter league now where it's guard play and wings. Well, look, it's Anthony Davis. He is a Shaquille O'Neal. He is a Kevin Garnett. He is a generational talent, something that we never seen before. And the worst thing that could have happened to the NBA, not just the Clippers, but the entire NBA, is that AD got to test the waters and went all the way to win a championship, meaning he went through the highs and the lows of being battle tested and testing those waters. So when you look at what Anthony Davis was doing in the playoffs, what he did to Portland, what he did to Houston, what he did to Denver, he killed those bigs in the low post. He took them outside. He did everything he wanted to do. At his best, at Anthony Davis' best, he is arguably the best player in the league and could possibly be an MVP candidate for the next 5 years. And by the way, this is a guy just hitting his prime at 27 years old. So, no, I'm looking at Anthony Davis, and he's the common denominator in this whole argument. He is the best in the league for us being able to use his skill set at that height, being able to defend 1 through 5s on the defensive end, and he is the one that separates the two between the Lakers and the Clippers.
Well, KP, it's something important that I want you to recognize here. First of all, the question was PG and Kawhi's best game. That's number one. Number two, we're still not picking them to beat the Lakers. Nobody's picking them to beat the Lakers. We understand that the Lakers are better. Nobody's disputing that. Yeah, but what I'm saying is when you look at PG and Kawhi, let's pay attention to something. When we ask the question, their best, we're assuming in terms of their best, on both ends of the floor, defensively and offensively. And even though there is no answer for AD, you have to remember the stronger, because you ain't taking AD down low. You're not going to be a monster in the interior with him. The nightmare for him is somebody that can jack up shots from long range and somehow, some way, even if their eyes are closed and they praying, somehow it's going in from 30. That's the problem for AD. That's the problem for LeBron. And what I'm saying is, even though I don't believe for 1 second it's going to happen, if you have two guys that can play on an elite level like they're capable of playing, and they bring their A-plus game to the equation, I will say this: the Clippers are the number one threat to the Lakers under those circumstances. Would you say that?
No, not really. No, I would not say that, because for the simple fact that, Stephen A., you go back to the first series that the Lakers played the Portland Trail Blazers in Game 1.
Right.
We was telling Anthony Davis that he needs to dominate in the interior. Game 2, he did just that, and he carried it on. Even in the Rocket series, he was dominating in the paint, getting dunk after dunk, setting up shop on the low block, and that's what I'm saying. AD at his best is better than a Paul George at his best. Now, you could say Kawhi and
I know
LeBron
that.
at their best maybe wash each other out. And then what I'm saying is, on top of that, the Lakers have the better roster. How do you win the championship and you go and upgrade more than the Los Angeles Clippers, who didn't even meet that goal?
All right, the Lakers won 2 of 3 against the Clippers last season, but all games were close, but decided by 10 points or less.
If you think you may be depressed, or if you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious, BetterHelp Online Counseling offers licensed professional therapists who are trained to listen and help with issues including anxiety, grief, relationship conflicts, LGBT, self-esteem, and more. Simply fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and then get matched with your counselor in under 48 hours. Easily schedule secure video or phone sessions, plus exchange unlimited messages to communicate with your therapist at your convenience. Everything you share is confidential, and if for any reason you're unhappy with your counselor, you can request a new one at any time at no additional charge. Join the 1 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced BetterHelp counselor. BetterHelp is an affordable option, and our listeners get 10% off your first month with the discount code TAKE. Get started right now at betterhelp.com/take. Talk to a therapist online and get help today.
To celebrate State Farm's surprisingly great race, we gave this game day jam surprisingly great lyrics.
I want a race that's great. Who is this to free him tonight? Hey, it's Jake. I want a way to save. Got the coverage on my brand new ride. State Farm race. Yeah, they're great. State Farm, State Farm, State Farm race.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Let's continue talking about the Clippers, and we bring back Kendrick Perkins. There he is. But Max, I'm starting with you here. Talk to me. Has the Clippers window closed?
No, I don't think the window has closed, and that's primarily because of LeBron James's age. Look, LeBron is setting records every time he goes out there and does it. And when I said Tom Brady was going to have a cliff, I was wrong. It was a ravine, right? But he's obviously in decline. He's not nearly what he once was several years ago. Eventually, that's going to happen to LeBron because Father Time is undefeated. Guys, I saw Bernard Hopkins get knocked out by Joe Smith out of the ring because he was 50 years old. Eventually it gets you. And LeBron is in uncharted territories. And it's not going to take that much of a downtick for a guy like Kawhi to catch him, right? Even if I was premature having said it in the past. So the fact that now they have Paul George locked up long term, and when you look at the rest of this Clippers roster, by the way, the outside of the big four, the next best player on either roster is Lou Williams. Lou Williams is a great scorer. Williams is in a good way. He's a great scorer, and he is clearly, by far, the next best player on either roster. And then the Clippers also have bigs who can defend and shoot in Ibaka and Morris. A 3-and-D, really a 2-guard, but they play him at the 1 because he's short, and Patrick Beverley, but the kind of guy you want on your team. When you said the rest of the roster favors the Lakers, I really disagree with that, Perk. And given the age of their superstars, where one of them, namely LeBron, should at some point be in decline, I can't say that the Clippers' window is shut.
I can. And that's despite what I just finished saying about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Remember, we were fantasizing. We were sitting there and saying, if Kawhi Leonard was at his best, if Paul George was at his best, could they make things very, very interesting? Yes, but I did remind everybody that the Lakers are the prohibitive favorite as well. They should be. As far as I'm concerned, the Clippers had their opportunity and they blew it. because Kawhi Leonard didn't show up in the Game 7 and neither did Paul George. It was one of the most horrific performances by a dynamic duo in a Game 7 in NBA history. There is no way to get around it. It was a complete choke job. Plain and simple. Having said all of that, you could make amends. It would be easier to do if somebody else had won the chip. But it's what Kendrick Perkins alluded to in the previous segment. Anthony Davis got a taste. The man is a champion now. He finally got past the semifinals, went to a conference finals, went to a finals, won a game in a conference final game, winning shot, went to the finals and played lights out. Could have easily been named the MVP himself. He was spectacular. And now that you have him with LeBron James, what they didn't do is allow somebody else to get a sniff of winning. So the bottom line is it's an easier path to go through for now. I don't think it's harder for LeBron. I think it's easier. Now LeBron are chasing ghosts because he already got 4 rings. He's already a 4-time league MVP. He's still recognized in year 17 as the best in the world. And when we look at it from that perspective, and then you look at the greatness of Anthony Davis, who's finally being recognized as a top 3 talent on the planet that he is, and then you go and you add the pieces that you've added with Schrader and these boys, and Montrezl Harrell, Pau Gasol wants to come out of retirement to play with his brother, Marc Gasol, who's added to the equation, and what have you. Do I like Ibaka? Yes. Do I like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George with Ibaka? Yes. Do I think Ibaka is an upgrade from Harrell because of his perimeter shooting and rim protection? Yes. But in the end, the bottom line is this. There's even more pressure amped on the shoulders of Kawhi and Paul George because of what they didn't do. The fact that the Lakers have won the chip, they are now playing with house money, and they still got better. So to me, it makes it that much more daunting for the Clippers. I think that the Clippers had their window of opportunity. They will compete. They will be competitive. They will be in the race. But I still think they missed their opportunity. Their best shot was last year. The door is closed.
Absolutely, the door is closed. And I agree with you, Stephen A. And it's not just because of the Lakers. Just look at the Western Conference and how much better the teams and organizations got. Just look at the Portland Trail Blazers. They got better. One could say that they're better than the Clippers. Look at the Denver Nuggets. They got better. One could say that they're better than the Clippers. And look at Golden State. Although Klay Thompson is out, getting Kelly Oubre, still have Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, Looney, who's an underrated player in my eyes, Pascal, who's on the bench. You look at all these teams, and they got better. To me, they had a significant upgrade more than the Clippers. And when I look at the Clippers, their window of opportunity was last year. Let me not count out the Dallas Mavericks, Max, your team. And when you look at the Clippers, I think the worst thing that happened to the Clippers in the bubble was that although the Dallas Mavericks lost, Luka showed the world that the Clippers was all bark and no bite. The way he went toe-for-toe for them, taking them to 6 games without his Robin when Porzingis got hurt in the second game, I believe it was, and was out for the rest of the series. Luka made that interesting. And what he did was he showed the world that I could take on these perimeter guys that y'all calling some dogs by myself. So it made other teams gain confidence. And then God knows what Jamal Murray did to him and coming back down 3-1. No one is scared of the Clippers anymore. No one is scared of them. People are looking at the Clippers saying, you know what, y'all softer than some hot Twinkies, and they ready to attack them. So it's not just the Lakers being a clear-cut favorite. It's everyone in the West that then got better this offseason.
Look, if you're talking about this upcoming season, I agree with you. I don't think the Clippers are even the biggest threat to the Lakers in the Western Conference in this upcoming season. But look at Kawhi and Paul George's ages. They should have years ahead of them as elite players, particularly Kawhi, given the level he can play, and Paul George at least in the regular season. And then you have to look at the kind of moves the front office is capable of making. So I brought up Luke Kennard. You're like, oh, so what? They gave up Shamet, who can shoot, but that's it. Kennard's actually a better scorer. He's only 23 years old. And if he can stay healthy, you got him on the cheap. I bring up Lou Williams, who's a 6th man of the year, really perennially. He should be the 6th man of the year every year. You brought up Ibaka. You brought up Morris. If you bring in a guy like an aging veteran who's still effective, at some point in the next several years who can run the point, suddenly you think of this team differently.
Max, all of that talking, all of that synopsis, you just gonna bypass no facial expression, no animation, no nothing to the fact that Kendrick Perkins called the Clippers soft as hot Twinkies? You're just gonna gloss over that. You don't get, there's nothing inside of you that made you pause and say, wait a minute, did he just say they soft as hot Twinkies? Is that what Kendrick Perkins said? Because that's what I heard. You just gonna gloss over that?
Let me tell you something. Everyone knows the Clippers underachieved this past season. They're not going to play worse than that. But soft as hot Twinkies? Yeah, that's what the Western Conference is thinking. It's up to the Clippers to prove them wrong. But they don't just have this year to do it. They have years ahead of them.
I'm just saying pay attention to it. So, soft as hot Twinkies.
I wasn't going to gloss over that. Stephen A., I was there with you. I was thinking like hot Twinkies, Pop-Tarts. It's been a while. Sounds kind of good. Girl's a little hungry.
Hi there, this is Julie Foudy, host of the podcast Laughter Permitted, and I'm here to tell you about our sponsor, Ally. First of all, if you're still stuffing financial documents into a filing cabinet, I am here to save you. Or perhaps you're still waiting in line at a bank. There's a smarter way, my friends. Do your banking online with Ally. Anytime, anywhere, the name is the mission. Ally is your financial ally. Let them make your money work smarter while you get to play. Which for me means more time to surf and hang with my sometimes adorable kids. Visit ALLY.com/savings to learn more. Ally Bank, member FDIC.
Napa know-how. Right now, get a 5-quart jug of Napa full synthetic motor oil and a platinum filter for just $22.98. They're an iconic duo like salt and pepper, a hammer and a nail, or the holidays and awkward hugs. You can't get one without the other. That's Napa full synthetic and a platinum filter for just $22.98. Quality parts, helpful people. That's Napa know-how. Napa know-how. General States pricing. Sales price does not include applicable state, local taxes, or recycling fees. Offer ends 12/31/20.
Look, this is a tough assignment, man. This is like ice skating uphill for Jalen Hurts. I'm just telling you. Look, this Saints defense is ferocious. They don't mess around. They have got absolute hunters and dogs at all three levels of this defense. They're deep and they're fast on the defensive line. They're deep and they're fast at linebacker. They got the best set of man coverage players in the secondary of any team in the NFL. And Jalen Hurts is saying, I get to take over and ignite the offense against these guys. Okay. He could really be in a situation where he is under siege over and over and over again. Barring something unforeseen, this game can get ugly. I would be shocked if it doesn't, but I anticipate this getting ugly.
Louis Riddick's sound a little bit worried about Jalen Hurts versus that New Orleans defense. The Saints D has allowed 2 touchdowns while forcing 13 turnovers in their past 5 games. Big test ahead for Hurts' first start. Dominique Foxworth joining us now. Neek, always good to see you. Thank you so much for being with us. Max, I'll start with you. Do you think Eagles fans should be worried about Jalen Hurts?
No. I think you should welcome the challenge. You have to sit Carson Wentz, as I've been saying, to see what you have in your second-round quarterback. Like, when people were telling me they drafted Hurts in the second round because, they wanted a depth at the stop. It wasn't a run a wildcat. No, they drafted him because they were afraid of continued regression by Carson Wentz, which is what happened, and identified Hurts as a guy maybe who could be their franchise quarterback. Or you don't draft him in the second round. Like, Jalen Hurts doesn't need your sympathy. Jalen Hurts, this dude goes from the starting quarterback at Alabama. Yup, he lost his job to Tua, but he was excellent at Alabama. And then after Nick Saban said, no, I have a guy I like even better, who snapped him up? Lincoln Riley, right? And then he's drafted in the second round, and now, halfway through his rookie season, he's getting the ball to start. Like, there's a reason for that, and it's not just that he's lucky. Guys, the same thing happened with Tua, right? Like, don't start him against the Rams. Oh, it's bad news. Here comes Aaron Donald. Why would you do it? Well, let's see what you got. And the first play, Tua gets body slammed, basically, gets back up, takes a lick and keeps on ticking. Didn't force things, and they wound up winning the game. I'm not saying Hurts is going to beat the Saints with this Eagles team, but you have the rest of this season to see what you have. Wentz is done. What is Jalen Hurts? If he's a guy you believe you can develop as a franchise quarterback, you're good, and you can use your very high draft pick coming up. It's going to be high, based on the Eagles' record, on something other than a quarterback. But if you evaluate Hurts the rest of this year and go, no, he can't be an NFL quarterback, you got to use that draft pick on a quarterback. And it starts now. Let's see. You throw him in the fire. Let's see what happens in the crucible of competition against one of the best defenses in the league. It's now or never.
We're not saying don't throw him into the fire. We're not saying you don't see what happens. What we're saying is there's a lot to be worried about. There's an awful lot to be worried about. When you sit there and look at Hendrickson, you look at Cameron Jordan, you look at that secondary with Lattimore and Williams and Malcolm Jenkins and Patrick Robinson and those boys, they're nothing to sneeze at. They're number 4 against the pass. They're number 2 against the rush. They get at the quarterback. They can defend you in man. They can switch to zone. Not only can they beat you up, they can also demoralize and discombobulate you. That's a reason to be concerned about a young quarterback from a psychological perspective. You still take the chance. That's what Miami did with Tua when they threw him in there against the Rams. We understand all of that. But But the Miami situation is growing. The Eagles situation is regressing and disintegrating before our very eyes as it pertains to the coach, as it pertains to the GM, and everything else in between. I know this much when it comes to Doug Peterson. I had damn well better see Miles Sanders and Boston Scott running that damn football this weekend. I know that much. We better not ignore them and just have Jalen Hurts dropping back to pass and throwing the damn football all game long. Utilize your running game, excuse me, because they're pretty solid. That's what you need to do. My concern for Jalen Hurts is that in a game like this, particularly with the brilliance of a Sean Payton, they can really demoralize you to a point where it might take you a while to recover from it. That's my concern about Jalen Hurts. I know what a stud athlete he is, but in terms of passing the football, reading through your progressions, figuring out what to do throwing the football, am I a bit worried about him? You damn right. I anticipate a blowout here. I truly do.
Yeah, I mean, he's a rookie, and you should be worried about all those things in rookies in their first starts, whether they're playing against one of the best defenses in the league or not. But the difference between the Dolphins situation and what's going on in Philly is the Dolphins were winning. They were playing well. Their head coach and their general manager seem to be on the same page. They seem to see the world the same way and think with the same brain. That's not what's happening in Philly. Philly is in a tailspin. They look like they are a mess. No one has any clue what they're doing going forward. And it appears to me that the front office sees Jalen Hurts as a potential franchise quarterback. And like you said, Max, they were concerned about the regression, either the regression or the health of Carson Wentz. That's why they drafted him. But nothing about what Doug Peterson has said or done prior to or after announcing Jalen Hurts was going to be the starter suggests that he sees Jalen Hurts that way. That's what I'd be most concerned about. Is Doug Peterson going to do his best job to make Jalen Hurts succeed? And it doesn't feel like he's done what he could to make Carson Wentz succeed. And it feels to me like Doug Peterson is committed to Carson Wentz in a way that the rest of the organization doesn't seem to be. And I understand they paid him a lot of money, which would suggest that maybe they were committed to him, but drafting a quarterback in the second round, a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, like you said, you don't do that to do some sort of Taysom Hill situation where he's just a gadget guy. Taysom Hill was not drafted nowhere nearly that high. I don't even think Taysom Hill was drafted. I think he was undrafted free agent, but I'm sure somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But the point is, the situation between Miami and Philly are very different, and that's what makes me worry for Jalen Hurts. It's less about his ability as a player, and he wasn't someone who I thought was going to be a franchise quarterback, but I'm more concerned about the organization around him, the team around him, and how committed they are to moving on this same path, because it's very different in Miami and Philly right now.
Couple things. Tua was under much more pressure than Jalen Hurts because Miami was winning, and Fitzpatrick was playing well. And they benched him anyway and put in Tua. That's a lot to put on a young kid, and it was a gutsy move. It's different in Philadelphia. There's actually less pressure on Jalen Hurts because their hand was forced here. They had to take a look at the number 2 quarterback, whoever that was. But it's not just whoever that was in Jalen Hurts' case. This is a guy, not only did they use a second-round pick on him, but that pick was valuable because they needed receiving help. And instead of trading for DeAndre Hopkins or packaging that second-round pick and moving up and getting CeeDee Lamb, they said, nope, we like this guy. We think we see something here. So you've got to play him now and find out. And in terms of, look, they're going to lose. Guys, they're going to lose the game, right? We all know they're going to lose the game. The Saints may be the best team in the NFL right now. Certainly they look that way in the NFC, even if their schedule's been a little soft recently. The defense is playing great. The Eagles' offensive line is not nearly as bad as Carson Wentz has made them look. They win in pass blocking. Their win rate, I think, was like 12th in the league. Their run blocking was 4th in the league. It's not like, and so that's part of the reason why when Jalen Hurts gets the ball and doesn't hold it forever and make bad decisions, the offense starts working better. Right. Let's see what we got in Jalen Hurts. Why be scared?
But, so, I mean, the first one is about pressure. Like, that feels like a straw man. No one's concerned about pressure being on Jalen Hurts or pressure being on Tua. I'm of the mind that pressure's fine. Pressure's good. You have to find out how your player deals with pressure at some point, be it pressure from blitz or pass rush or pressure from expectations. So the fact that there's more or less pressure is irrelevant to me. That's not what makes me worry about Jalen Hurts on Sunday. What makes me worry is that they do not have the players to support him right now, and they don't seem to have an organization that is in lockstep, that is working in the same direction. I'd much rather be Tua dropped into a situation, a high pressure situation on a team that is playing well and a team that seems like their general manager and Chris Greer is in concert with Flores. Like, it is the question. It's about why. It's about worrying about Jalen Hurts.
No, that's the straw man.
You think so? No,
wait, that's the straw man, Dominique. No, so would you rather be Hurts? The real question is, would you rather be Hurts not getting a chance to start the rest of this year, or Hurts getting a chance to start the rest of this year?
That's not the question. You're changing the question altogether. My point is that I am worried for Jalen Hurts this weekend for the reasons that I told you. I don't understand how you cannot be worried if I lay out all the context around him. That whole situation concerns me. Before you even get to Jalen Hurts' ability or Jalen Hurts' potential to be a starting quarterback, everything around him is in disarray. It looks like it's a mess. So yes, I'm worried for him. Yes, Eagles fans should be worried for him and their team. That's very different.
Except he's had better success than the starter when he's been in. As I said, the offensive line is underrated. As Stephen A. pointed out, that's one of the reasons the running backs can get business done when they're used, when Peterson includes them in the game plan, which I think he will with Hurts. I mean, the bottom line is, are you worried about him? Do you want to be a second-round pick quarterback who played for Saban and Lincoln Riley and had a ton of success in college, who's now getting a chance to start halfway through a little bit more his rookie year for a team with an underrated offensive line and some running backs, or don't you? I mean, of course, it's an opportunity, and he has a chance now the rest of the season to win a starting job in the NFL. Are you worried they're going to lose? Yeah, you should be. They're going to lose. But I'm not worried for Jalen Hurts.
All right. Over the last 5 games, the Saints defense has allowed a total of 44 points. That is incredible. Let's keep it moving, fellas. There's another big one I want to get into this weekend. Playoff seedings at stake in the AFC. As the season winds down, Buffalo fighting to keep that top spot in the AFC East, hosting the Steelers on Sunday night. Stephen A., you're up first here. Who needs to win more? Is it your Steelers or the Buffalo Bills?
I think it's the Steelers. Max, do you want to go first on this, or you want me to go?
You tell me. I'm happy to go. You let me know what you want to respond to it, or you want to start.
Listen, Steelers. I think the Steelers need this, and the reason why I think the Steelers need this, you don't need to allow teams within the AFC to continue to build momentum as the waning part of this season comes before us. Kansas City's going to be there. We understand that. You got Cleveland. Even when the Steelers won and they were 11-0, I think it was immediately after the Washington loss. My apologies. You had the Cleveland Browns talking about we can catch them, because you're anticipating that they're going to lose. You got a game against them. They got another game that they could potentially lose. The Cleveland Browns, 2 games behind, were looking at them and saying, yo, we can take them. We can catch these brothers. Buffalo obviously is in that mix right now. They've been playing good football for the better part of this season. We got to give props where it's due in terms of their development along the way. And so when you look at it from that perspective, knowing you can never discount Tennessee, you can't summarily dismiss Indianapolis as well. Obviously, it's one of those things where I think if you're the Steelers, considering the way that you've looked over the last couple of weeks, obviously because of COVID and the games being postponed on 3 separate occasions against Baltimore, then you having to play a game on a Wednesday, and then after that following it up on a Monday afternoon, basically. So your body clock is just all over the place, whatever the case may be. Bottom line, if you're the Steelers, you're concerned about all of these things, and you got to get your act together because you've looked horrid pretty much the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you got to get your act together. I don't think that's the kind of thing you want to go into the postseason thinking about or having on your mind, and because of the way that you're playing, particularly with the level of competition in the AFC this year. I think this game is more important to the Steelers.
I totally disagree. I think it's clearly more important to the Bills. See, the Steelers already have 11 wins. No, they haven't been playing well. There's still some time before the playoffs. And in terms of Cleveland, the way the Ravens did the Browns week 1, the way the Steelers did Cleveland when they played them earlier in the year, I don't know anyone who says, yeah, Cleveland's can win a Super Bowl this year. I have a different feeling about the Bills. I feel like the Bills looked after their last game like they've arrived. Like they could really be a powerhouse. In fact, ask around, who has the best chance to beat the Chiefs in the AFC? Would anyone say Baltimore or Pittsburgh right now? Because I'd say the Bills. And I think they got to keep that going, especially since, in a larger sense, the AFC East is now up for grabs, right? No Brady-Belichick combination anymore. Brady was in decline anyway, but now Belichick had to take a new quarterback. He's totally different in Cam. The defense isn't the same. No offensive weapons. Who's going to take over the AFC East? The Dolphins are good. I think Miami, they play defense like they mean it, and they drafted a quarterback back way up high with some star potential, right? No, the Bills have a chance right now to put, and by the way, the Dolphins get the Chiefs this week. The Bills have a chance right now to put some daylight between themselves and the rest of the AFC and to firmly establish the fact that they have indeed arrived. I think this is a more important game for Buffalo.
You make some good points, Max, but you're wrong. I think Stephen A. is right because the window is closing. If this is not the last year of this window in Pittsburgh, then it's really close. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have a chance potentially to win the Super Bowl this year. The only way that they can win the Super Bowl this year is if they get that lone first-round bye. As everyone probably has heard by now, there used to be 2 first-round byes in the NFL playoffs. Now there is only 1. The Steelers have no shot of winning 3 playoff games in a row and then winning in the Super Bowl. Right now, the Steelers have the tiebreaker to beat the Chiefs to get that first-round bye and home field advantage as long as they win out. If the Chiefs win out and the Steelers lose another game, the Steelers will have to win 3 playoff games in what seems to me the last potential window that they have with Ben Roethlisberger. And this defense is fading. They're a talented defense, but they're losing players, and I am less confident in them than I was coming in. And I understand everything you said about the Bills. I think you're right. The Bills have Super Bowl potential if they get hot, if things work out in the right direction, if their defense can be as good as it's been recently, if it could do that consistently in the playoffs, and Josh Allen can not short circuit, because that's the scariest thing about the Bills is Josh Allen, when he gets pressured, Josh Allen thinks he's Patrick Mahomes or he thinks he's Deshaun Watson, and he tries to make magic, and instead he makes a mess. So I think that they have a promising future, especially in that division, AFC East. The Bills' window is just starting to open. So I know their chances of winning Super Bowl this year go up substantially if they can win and continue to create good feelings and as they go forward. But I think that their window is just starting to open. Whereas the Steelers, this is their last chance. Ben Roethlisberger is not the quarterback that he once was, and you saw what they have behind him. And we're in an age in football where you cannot win just by having a dominant defense. So no matter how talented or good that defense is, their window is this year. If they don't pull it off this year, which in my mind requires the first round bye, then they don't win.
I think, while I don't disagree with you, but I think it's a point that needs to be added here. When we talk about the Buffalo Bills, to piggyback off your point, Dominique, let's look at the wins, Max, that they've had thus far this year. Of course, they beat the Jets twice, you know that. But they've beaten the Dolphins, the Rams, the Raiders, the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Chargers, and the 49ers. And so you've got some quality wins in there by a relatively young football team. And when you look at it from that perspective, if they lose this week, okay, then it's it's just the latest game on the schedule we got this week, but we got 3 weeks to bounce back. We got 2 divisional games against the Patriots in Miami to close out the season, and a game with against the Broncos before that. If you're the Steelers, because you're older, because the expectations are there, because what Dominique pointed out, the window closing, combine that with the fact that you've looked like you've looked over the last 3 weeks or so, and you have no running game to speak of. And we all know the 2 things that must travel with you in the postseason is a defense and a running game. The Steelers do not have a running game, okay? They've ranked 31st 2 years ago. Last year they were 29th. This year they're at 29 right now. They don't run the football effectively. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's very, very important that you don't give a team like Buffalo the momentum that they would know how to utilize to propel them to new heights. You want to squash that as best as you possibly can, especially since you might meet them come postseason.
Here's the thing. Right now, there's a tendency to slightly underrate the Steelers. Look, if I told you at the beginning of the season this is a 14-2 team, you think every Steelers fan would sign up for that? Hell yeah. They were 8-8 last year. It was an amazing job by Tomlin. But when you watch the Steelers this year, and we even said, are they going to go undefeated? Nah, even after they had like 10 wins, it's a 14-2 type of team. Right, well, here's their other loss, right? They're going to get healthy against the Bengals. Do you know why they're likely to lose to the Bills? And it's okay. They played 3 games in 13 days, right? They had postponements, short weeks. They didn't have a bye forever. They lost their mini bye. They were exhausted, which is why they were winning the game. And then they got tired late, which is basic, more or less what happened against an ascending Washington team. But they were winning by 2 touchdowns. There's a reason Ben Roethlisberger era, they're like 109, 2-1 when that's the case at any point in the game, up 2 touchdowns. Because they're good enough to hold that lead, but they're exhausted. By the way, this week against one of the best teams in the NFL, and I would say you brought up Mahomes and Watson. Those are the 2 better quarterbacks in the AFC. I would take Josh Allen over the rest of the AFC quarterbacks, including Lamar Jackson right now. So, against that team, can they lose? Sure. And then they'll get healthy against the Bengals, finally with some rest because they're playing Monday night. If you're looking for losses on their schedule, if they're at most a 14-2 win team, they might not even be 14-2 wins, just based on the quality of the team. Here's the other loss. It ain't the end of the world.
So, you almost sent us off on a whole nother tangent. Maybe I can come back next week and we can debate this Lamar versus Josh Allen thing, because I think that's an easy answer. The answer is Lamar Jackson, the quarterback that you take. But that's a whole nother conversation. In this situation, I think expectations matter. And if you look at the big picture, Steelers' expectation is championship or bust. Most seasons, unless their starting quarterback gets hurt. And we understand that right now, this season for the Steelers would be a disappointment if they do not win the Super Bowl. The only chance they have to win the Super Bowl is to win out the regular season and to retain that first round bye. There are different expectations in Buffalo. Buffalo is building something. They can have the season that they've had without winning a Super Bowl and still feel like they are headed in the right direction. The Steelers, if they have that season, it is a disappointment. And then they look around at their aging quarterback and their defense, which is dealing with injuries right now, and they don't feel as confident going forward. I think that's why it matters, because they are on different timelines. And all this stuff that we tend to discount matters for how you assess the season. I couldn't hear you. Go ahead, Max. What's that?
No AFC team has it's not a disappointment if you don't get by the Chiefs in the AFC. I'm sorry. To start the season, the Steelers were not like, oh yeah, they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Maybe you could
Max,
say a
let me
team
ask you
like
a
the
question.
Saints the way they're playing now. That's not a disappointment. Yeah.
Well, here's what's annoying about your take, Max. So you say if we took it and we started the season out and we said the Steelers going to end up in 14-2, would we take that? Of course we would. But we take 13-3 too. We take 12-4 as well. Hey, Max, we take 11-5. But if you start out the season 11-0 and you finish 11-5, is that a good thing? Is that a good thing? Yes or no?
No, I don't think they're going to finish 11-5.
Thank you. So what I'm saying is thank you. So stop saying, oh, we would take this record at the end of the season, at the beginning of the season. It matters what you do week to week. It matters what you do month to month. It matters what you do as the season progresses. And if you're looking like garbage in December, approaching Christmas with the playoffs around the corner, that's significantly worse than looking like garbage in September, but looking much better in December.
Guys, this is the tough part of the Steelers' schedule. The reason when they had to move their bye because of that Titans game, which was very close and they were lucky to win, the reason that was a big deal is because the hard part of their schedule was late and they wouldn't have rest. This was exactly the concern. Giants started slow. They had the Giants, the Broncos, the Texans, the Eagles. Stop me when you hear a challenge. They whooped the Browns. That was supposed to be a little tougher. They squeaked by the Titans, squeaked by the Ravens. Then they have the Cowboys, Bengals, Jaguars. Guys, it was a soft schedule. Now it's harder. This is when the losses are supposed to occur, when you have a tired team against tougher teams. It's okay to lose a couple games.
I can end it. If the Steelers are not in the Super Bowl, they will be disappointed. If the Bills win a playoff game, they will celebrate this season. Look at their recent history. That's what it comes down to.
Dominique, my only challenge on that would be, I think it's forgivable if the Steelers lose to Kansas City. No one else. But if they lost to Kansas City, that's acceptable. Anyone else?
I think it's forgivable, but I don't think the Steelers
that's what
are
Dominique's saying they
comfortable
need
with
to
that.
buy for.
Go ahead, Molly.
Neek, bringing that smoke. Neek, by the way, I'm into that blazer. Really into menswear lately. Let's keep it going. You had a hot take the other day on Get Up. You were talking about your former coach, Marvin Lewis, and saying that he's the top head coaching candidate right now with the Bengals. He did take the team to the playoffs 7 straight times. And I'm seeing Stephen A. Smith's eyes really perk up here. It looks like he's really paying attention to the subject. So let's do this. Neek, why don't you make your case on Marvin Lewis? And then Stephen A., why don't you respond?
So first of all, just in case, just to ensure anyone that I'm not biased, Marvin Lewis never actually coached me. He left the Ravens before I got there. I played against him a bunch of times, but I never was coached by him and never met him. So it's not coming from a place of bias. It's coming from the fact that I'm tired of people evaluating Marvin Lewis like fans. Like fans have full-time jobs. They got other things to do. So at the end of the day, they look at things like playoff record or Super Bowl championships, and they're like, all right, he's the GOAT. He's not. We are better than that. We have to take into account context. And what Marvin Lewis did at Cincinnati is as impressive as what we've seen just about any other coach short of Bill Belichick do. What he did there was he increased their win percentage by 21% from the 10 years before he got there to his time there. He did that. You know what Bill Belichick did? He did it by 31%. Those of the kind of Hall of Fame coaches that we have in the NFL right now, that is as impressive as it gets. I think Pete Carroll, 11%, Andy Reid, 8%, I think Harbaugh, 7%. And also, to the point, don't be a fan and understand that context matters. Everyone in the league knows that while Marvin Lewis was at Cincinnati, they were renowned as the cheapest organization. They didn't have a general manager. They had a Spartan kind of scouting staff. They didn't have the facilities of other people. So what he did there is tantamount to like a number 16 seed making it to the Elite 8, and then everyone looking at them and say, but you didn't win a championship. You're a failure. You're a bad head coach. The context matters, and it's underappreciated how much he did with little. Like, he is running this race every year, or he was, with a weight vest on. And he managed to win the division 4 times, got into the playoffs 7 times. You know how many times they did either of those things in the 10 years before he was hired? 0. And he did all this in a division with 2 coaches who are probably going to go to the Hall of Fame, in Harbaugh and Tomlin. Bill Belichick was in that awful division where no teams were good or competitive or well run and dominated for that. So I think all that matters. Go ahead, Stephen A.
Yeah, you got to give me a chance to get at you about this because the show's about to end. That's one of the most asinine things I've ever heard coming out of your mouth. And I don't hear asinine things coming out of your mouth. You're a pretty brilliant brother, but this ain't your brightest day. Let me be very, very clear. You said context. That's the operative word here, Dominique, context. Because if you're talking about, listen, you're a moribund franchise, you losing, do you bring somebody in to kind of help be somewhat respectable? I think this guy should be a head coaching candidate. I'm not opposed to that, so I don't challenge you on that one. Do I think that Marvin Lewis deserves another head coaching job in the NFL? Yes, I do. I've never swayed away from that. When you say top NFL candidate,
So can I respond to that first one first?
Hold on for a second, because that's not even my important point. My important point is this. Contextually speaking, as somebody who I consider to be a winner, I consider you to be a winner as a person, as a professional, your level of intellect, I consider you to be a winner in a lot of ways. There is no way in hell Dominique Foxworth coaches in the same place for 16 years and never wins a playoff game. Now, you can't talk about Marvin Lewis without bringing up that. Because the objective is to win. 16 years, not one single playoff victory, 0-7. All I'm saying is I'll take every positive thing that you said about him as long as, from a contextual perspective, as long as you're willing to say, yo, he didn't win a playoff game in 16 years.
Oh, that's an embarrassment. 0-7 in the playoffs is more than enough reason. More than enough reason to fire a coach. But it is not enough reason to not appreciate that he is the best candidate out there. And what I mean by context matters, to your first point, is he is doing so much with so little. So, like, let's say that Stephen A. University is something that exists. And then there are two applicants. One of them has a 1600 SAT, 4.0 GPA, and has 3 pages of extracurricular activities and is perfect. Another one has a 1400 and 3.5 and no extracurriculars. You're going to look at that and say, let me take this one who's a better candidate. But what if you sit down and have a conversation with him and understand that the context is the one who had a slightly lower GPA or the one who had a slightly lower SAT, they were in a single parent home. Their mother was a nurse. They had to get home to take care of their kids. They had to do all that thing.
I get where you're going.
Context matters.
I get where you're going.
So that the point in that situation is that person covered so much more ground, accomplished so much more. It's so much more impressive because they don't have the support as the other person. That's the only point that I'm making. I'm not saying, so if you're hiring Marvin Lewis because you're like, hey, he can make our organization respectable, I agree with you. That's not why you should hire a head coach. That's a bad reason. The point I'm making is imagine that student, or in this case, Marvin Lewis, imagine him in a situation where he has a general manager. Imagine him in a situation where he has a full scouting staff. Imagine when they have a top-of-the-line facility. Imagine him in a situation where quarterbacks don't threaten to retire if they have to come back to that.
Let's give Max the last word. Dominique, you're making a case why Marvin Lewis should get another job eventually. I agree with that. Even though the Bengals trended in the wrong direction, had losing seasons, I agree with that. That's different than saying he's the best available candidate. Give me a young guy who's paid his dues and who looks like he has higher upside than a guy. You can't just say Bieniemy, exactly. There are offensive coordinators and coordinators out there who I'd like to see get a shot and see
that offensive coordinator stuff is nonsense.
Retread, who will make your team respectable, but maybe not Super Bowl
the point
champion.
is they'll be better than respectable if you give him the support that he deserves. The point is that he can do more than what he did at Cincinnati because Cincinnati was not.
He never had the support, Dominique.
The point is,
never in 16 years.
These offensive coordinators is a fool's errand.
Come on, Dominique.
All right.
Come on,
Hey, side note, by the way, guys, we asked this Paul George, did he deserve the max extension? 84% of you said no. I'm surprised. Everybody have a fabulous weekend. Neat, good to see you. Stephen A. Max, talk to you Monday. Be safe.